So, Tony, I know we haven't met before, but very briefly.
Yeah.
Glad to have you on.
Well, thanks for
Tech
having
in
me.
Motion podcast.
Episode 9.
Episode 9.
Yeah.
Every time it's a surprise. Every one episode we go up, we make it.
Nice.
But no, we tried to just have a mix of talking about tech in general and bring people on who have different experiences that can just tell people their experiences, how they got into tech, thoughts on different things, try to expose people to conversations that they wouldn't normally be able to have.
Okay.
It's kind of the idea, right?
Sounds good.
So, Tony, Corey suggested you come on. So I know y'all have done a lot of work together.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
I mean, why don't y'all tell us about some of that, or just get started however you want?
Are you still with Duke? I should
I
have
am.
asked that question before.
Yeah.
But, we were both at Duke at the same time, worked with some similar people. Got another start when doing a nonprofit work with AppU.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And Tony was the man, all things tech when it came to outfitting the kids, teaching the kids, making sure they had all the machines. And I remember, what was it, like 50 or 60 machines that we
60
brought
machines,
in
yeah.
at one time that we brought in for all the kids so we could start them, especially as we went remote and how big that was because previously we were able to just kind of hold them, keep them, and then we would give them out each class. But once we went remote because of the pandemic, having these stationed in the kids' homes, so we had to make sure everything was running the way it was supposed to, and Tony took care of all of that relatively easily. He won't say so, but it looked like everything went really well. So I'm always been appreciative just to watch from and see however I can assist. But yeah, a lot of
That's
great
what's
work.
up. And
Yeah.
AppU is y'all go to local schools a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've talked to y'all and we've worked on a couple little things together, but why don't you intro yourself
Yeah.
and tell the kids what that's all about?
So, Tony Gripper. Most people call me Grip for those who know me. AppU is a great program. I mean, my daughter went through it.
Yeah.
She just graduated high school last year. So
Oh, wow.
she went through it, and it really taught minorities how to code, girls. And some of the rock stars in there was female coders, and she enjoyed it. She's looking to get back into it. She actually just got a call today from Orlandis asking about doing an intern to help facilitate some of the classes that they're looking forward to do this summer. So
Great.
something it's going to be big.
That's
So,
awesome, man.
but it's nice to give back too. So
Yeah. See, I love that aspect of this. You know, a lot of folks get advanced in their careers and don't focus on trying to help others advance their own careers. So I appreciate having you on and you being a part of something like that.
I appreciate it.
So how did you get into tech? Like, what's the story?
Boy, let's see. I mean, I've always loved tinkering with computers. I mean, since I was in 8th grade. I didn't actually go to a four-year college. No, I actually went to a tech school here in Charlotte, King's College. Originally from South Carolina, moved here in '88, right before Hugo. But anyway, went to Cochran Middle School, graduated from Garinger. But I always loved computers and just kind of tinkering with them. I took a year off after I graduated high school because the counselor tried me to get me to go into graphic design. Because I took graphic design, also took technical drafting. Right before CAD was really big, it was more hands-on, and I didn't really want to do that. So went to school, took some classes at CP, but the turning point is, because, everybody asks, oh, you're in IT. What does that actually mean, right? There's so many avenues of IT. So I was like, do I want to code? Do I want to do Unix? And so I'm sitting there looking at a black screen and a cursor just looking at me. I was like, yeah, I can't do this. So my turning point was like, I can't do that. I mean, I enjoy seeing what's being built afterwards, but I went the Microsoft route. So Windows, more GUI interface. And so just kind of grew from there. And for anybody who wants to get into technology, it's not all about going to a four-year school. It's about, I learned that along the way because I've been in technology now since my first job was, First Citizens. Uptown in a small closet, floppy disk, plugging in, pulling data, and inputting it in Excel. That was my first IT job. Wow. And so, and it's grown since then, but really understanding and knowing yourself and really taking the time to learn. And so I took the time to go to classes, to learn, to get certified in Windows, a lot of Microsoft certifications like System Center, where you do deployments of applications, coding of applications. So that's how I really got my start. I love it to this day.
How many years we talking now?
Well, I just turned 44, so 18, let's just say 25 years.
Yeah. OG in the game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things. You know, a lot of people ask me again, hey, you work in IT? And I say, yeah, I do. But, you know, even at Duke, right, I am not in IT. I actually left the IT group and went back over to the natural gas business unit, but I still do IT.
Yeah.
I still work on servers. I still work on more specialized applications. So I take care of, actually, I just got a promotion to lead. So
Yeah.
Nice.
yeah,
Congrats.
appreciate it. So I'm actually leading the GIS group, the administrators,
Nice.
and some other things that I have not been told what I'll be doing yet. But you know, we'll get there at some point. So, but I just love IT, just the things that it can accomplish, the things that it can do, and that's why I try to instill in my kids. You got to learn something about technology, you know, because it's always going to be there. It's always evolving. So.
I got you.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. As far as like the Microsoft focus, was that just kind of what you gravitated to because you liked those things, or did you kind of see like a gap or a need where you were, and those were like ways to move about? And,
No, I actually like those things.
Right.
Like coding, you know, I can read code, but I can't code, right? I can go through and decipher issues. And then I never forget, there was a job I had as a local administrator or a system administrator. And so the network guys were giving me switches to where I could go in, configure. I just didn't like it. I mean, you know, putting in a serial cable and connecting in through putty or whatever, and then trying to code and connect. I'm like, I'm a GUI guy. Let me just see the visual. And then, you know, that just made me like it even more. So
yeah.
So, what are you working with now in the Windows space? Like, what is the main stuff you're doing?
Windows servers. I still do support for Windows 11 server stuff. I used to do Exchange back in the day, not anymore. I used to do Software Center, where a lot of companies use that for deploying applications. So let's just say you have 20,000 people and you need to deploy an application. You can use Software Center. It's a Microsoft product to deploy out because there's a client on the machine that's running in the back end that communicates to this software to say, oh, you got a package for me? Let me pull it down and then I can install it.
And what's the title that they give?
It's a System Center.
System? No, I mean like for your job.
My job is I am a lead business and technical consultant.
Got you. Okay. See, yeah, that would give me nothing.
Exactly.
If I was asking you what you did or just trying to get it out of the title, I wouldn't understand anything.
Any of that,
just
right.
from that title.
And I think that title is more on the business side, right? So when I worked on the IT side, it was senior infrastructure analyst. So infrastructure, you handled infrastructure. But also too, I was a Citrix administrator. Been a Citrix administrator for years, and so anybody who've heard of virtual desktops or virtual apps, your main player in that is going to be Citrix. I mean, Microsoft has a space for that, but the biggest one out there is Citrix right now.
Got you. So I'm always curious, right? And we're not live, so like answer how you want. But for someone who's interested in like getting into something similar, because I went a different route. I went the whole like Unix heavy, Linux heavy nerd route. What was a progression that you see for the beginning of your career, like what job you would get entry level, right? And then kind of what that looks like progression wise to where you are now. And what I'm really curious about is what that looks like financially. Like for people who want to say, hey, this is a potential career. What does that translate towards? If you're comfortable sharing. If not, it's cool.
Nah, I'm open book, so it doesn't really
great.
matter. So I would say many people, you know, I hate to say this generation, they like things easy. And they don't like to work for it. But one of the best jobs, it probably was the hardest job I had when I was growing up. I worked at IBM, and I worked at the help desk at IBM. And it was like, you got to take calls, and really try to get the problems resolved. But it helped you to troubleshoot and research things. And then after that, I went to a job where I was third level. I sat in a chat room, and it was a company called Sykes. And so they were a company that did IT support for different companies. So it might be Adobe, it might be AT&T dial-up, which was the one I did. So I sat in a room, first level, they come into this chat room. Exactly. And here's the crazy thing. I worked both of those jobs at the same time.
Really?
When I worked at IBM, and they were both full-time jobs. Yeah. I worked from 7 a.m. to 3, right? IBM Drive. I crossed over, went over to David Taylor, where Sykes was, and I worked from 3:30 to midnight.
Sheesh.
And I did that after a couple of years after I graduated from college. So you gotta put your dues in. It's not gonna come easy.
No.
But the progression is help desk, and then maybe kind of some type of system administrator job. And when people don't think you can make money in doing IT, or you got to be in cybersecurity to make a lot of money, that's not true. Right? As you progress in your career, first thing is you get the training, but the job is going to train you what you need to learn, right? They're going to train you for that specific job. And so as you continue to train, that salary can continue to go up. So, I think about my progression over, let's just say, the last 5 years. I mean, I probably jumped $50,000 in salary. So, I make well over 6 figures in what I do. So, and that's not with a 4-year degree. That's with a 10-month degree. Got my computer associate's degree, and I went and got certifications, right? Microsoft certification. And once you start building at a company, I've been with Duke now for 15 years. So actually, once you start building in that company, you'll still continue to learn, but you may not have to get the certifications. Now you got AWS, Azure, a lot of cloud things that people are going to. So stay with the technology. So AWS, get your job to pay for that. Your cloud practitioner is somewhere you might want to start. I mean, depending on which route you want to go. Many companies I've seen are going to AWS, but a lot of companies still use Azure. So either one of those would be somewhere to probably start right now.
That's interesting. So in your help desk roles in the beginning, how much were those? I know that was like, what, you said 20 plus years ago?
Yeah, that was 20 plus years
ago.
I
mean, it's going to be skewed because of time.
Yeah.
But like they'll probably pay a little more now. But how much were you making in help desk role?
I mean, being that I wasn't married at the time, I wasn't married yet. So this was probably about 35 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, now that's probably a little more now, right? Yeah. Because, economic hard falls and times, people just pay more money coming out of college, but about 35. And then as I went to jobs, I switched. And that was
per job. You were making 35 per job. So you were pulling in 70.
Yeah.
Because you was hustling.
Yeah. A funny story is my grandmother is from Jamaica, and so. I got a little Jamaican in me, and they say, "Hey, you work like a Jamaican. You got 3 jobs." And I said, "Hey, I got my family." It was like, "Look, you got to hustle." So that's where I got that from. So
that was one thing on both sides of my family that was not tolerated. Yeah. Laziness.
No, I ain't gonna be lazy.
You just can't. You can be a lot of things, but you can't be lazy.
Exactly.
It's so interesting to me because of something you said earlier about a recent generation of people just kind of wanting that instant gratification, wanting things easily. And I think about when we were like in high school, right? Like tech jobs weren't something that were like shoved up to us. You graduated 2011, I graduated 2012.
Man, y'all make me feel old.
I know. It happens to all of our guests, so don't worry about it. But
we'll be there soon.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
True.
But like I went to school for electrical. So that was the thing that was pushed, get a trade, something you can put your hands on. And when even a person who doesn't have electrical skills walks up and sees a building being constructed, walks up seeing somebody, they can tell like that skill takes work, because I don't just flick on my light switch and assume that very little work went into this. I think there's something inherent about technology because of how instant technology is for us that we're just like, oh, I'll just jump into it and it'll be easy. Or the things I use give my life such an ease of use that everything else will just move along the same way. So we talked about it in a previous podcast where somebody be like, oh, I want to get into tech. How do I do it? And we're just like, it'll erase the next year of your life. outside of bare necessity things so that you can make the jump that you have to because it's tough. And you're like, and then that's how that switch happens.
Oh man, I got a whole bunch of thoughts on
You know, it's interesting because people ask me that question all the time. It's like, how do I get into tech? They want to build computers and stuff like that, which is fine. I used to do that too. I say I don't do it anymore because I just don't have the patience for it anymore. But a lot of things I find, and I'm on Instagram and I read these articles. There's a lot of things on YouTube in regards to training. You got YouTube, Udemy. There's so many opportunities now that I didn't have to be able to go out and learn. You'd have to go to a school. Now all this stuff is out here for free.
Yeah,
so,
all the information is there.
Oh yeah.
I think that's what's tough sometimes. Is like all the information is so readily available. People sometimes don't know what to focus on through the noise. And I can understand that, like, there's so much, you kind of get information overload. You don't know exactly what path to walk down because there's all the paths are in front of you.
Analysis paralysis.
And I can understand that. I think the hard thing for me is when, someone works with you, helps you to isolate a path, right? You have something in front of you that, okay, I want to work towards this. And then I still see the laziness at that point. That for me is when it's difficult. Like you've had someone try to help you and guide you. They're not expecting anything but hoping that you put in effort to help yourself. And then that I see that a lot. But I'm still a firm believer that I think everyone should at least have access to the knowledge and opportunity.
Yeah.
And there should be people going out of their way to try and give them the knowledge and perspective of that opportunity.
Here's the thing with what path to go, right? Because we all have to make that choice in what we want to do. It's what we enjoy. I mean, really, you have to figure out what you enjoy. Like, for instance, when I was building computers, supporting computers, my hobby was computers, right? And so, but if you don't like it, I mean, if you can't see yourself doing it as a hobby, and if you don't love it, you're not going to fight to keep it going or fight to learn more. So when anybody asks me, well, what path should I go? Well, you got to figure out what you want to do, whether it be security, whether it be, Windows basic, whether it be Unix, whether it be coding, whether it be C#, whether it be cloud, whatever the case may be. You got to make sure you love it before you jump into it, because it's just going to be just another job.
That's what I find really interesting about this conversation, because your perspective and experience shows that it's okay not to like coding. It's okay not to like this specific thing. But I liken everything to music. But it's like, just because you can't be the singer or the performer doesn't mean that there aren't other roles in the industry for you. And it's not so much that you just drop it and let it go after you decide, okay, well, nobody wants to buy my album. Like, okay, well, let's pick up another skill and see what else we can find. So that, to my thought process, like when I always talk to young people, when we would do App U, I'd ask them, I'd say, hey, what do you want to do? And I want to go to the NBA, I want to go to the NFL. Or once we get all that out the way, all right, cool. We get back to something like, all right, well, what do you like to do? Like, we spoken to a lot of young women, and they would say, well, I love to do hair. I'm just like, cool. Do you do it now? Yeah. Is it expensive for you to do now? And a lot of they would tell me like, yeah, well, if I'm not just braiding regular hair, I got to go buy hair, I got to go buy product. Cool. So what you can do is learn the skill, something that you enjoy, something that your mind picks up easily, and then that'll translate into supporting whatever you want to do later. And I think that's where it really kind of like falls into that love of what you see. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take it on full time, but I do believe there's a single aspect of tech somewhere that anybody can fall in love with. It's just about being willing to find that one thing that you fall in love with.
Yeah, I agree. It's interesting, like, talking about this whenever we get along this subject, because for me, when I got into tech, it was not that romantic. Like, it was not something like, oh, I just really like this, computers are my hobby. It was like none of that. My love for tech was completely accidental. Like, I had math in my mind, like, okay, eventually I want a family. How much does a family cost?
Well, we've also talked about your ADHD and the hyper focus that became tech for you.
Yes, but that was something I didn't even know. I had no idea that was a thing.
Fell into it.
Yeah, it just happened, and I happened to love it. But in the beginning, it was literally, man, okay, how can I know I'm gonna have to do 30 to 40 hours somewhere doing something.
Mm-hmm.
How could I make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time?
Yeah, because you always used to say you were gonna be a firefighter, right?
Yeah, when I was younger, like
Yeah.
17-ish, I still thought I might be a firefighter. And then I was like, the economics, I can see how you can make it shake.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them had like side hustles and stuff, and,
Yeah.
and the schedule's real flexible. And that's all cool, but I had to come up with a concrete number in my mind
Yeah.
for what it really meant to like support a family the way I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wanted my kids to be able to do stuff I couldn't really do growing up, like see some different places. Like, there was just things preferentially for me
Yeah.
that equated to a higher number. So I'm like, man, if I want a kid, like, and I want to like go a little here, go somewhere, and I'm on the East Coast, okay, cost of living, like, but we're talking about at least 1 to 2
Yeah.
in that range, and I don't want to just push for 1 to 2, so I'm gonna set it around like 3. We're gonna see if we can hit that. What are the career paths that can even at the top reach that potentially?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not even that I'm going to get there officially, but I just like, what's the top end potential of these? And tech just
Stood
took
out.
the cake.
Yeah.
Like, depending on which realm you go down, you can hit those ranges. And so in 6 figures, like, okay, if I don't hit the top level, then I should still, after experience, settle in around that 6 figures.
Shoot for the stars, fall to
Yeah.
the clouds.
Yeah, exactly. So then I was like, that makes sense. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And then 2 years in, I was like, wow, I really enjoy this.
Yeah.
And then you gravitated towards certain things that you did love as a result
Yeah.
of it once you found
Yeah.
it. But yeah, I actually have a question for you both, right? Because we constantly come back to this discussion. Well, it's really for you because I know your answer. We talk about the getting into tech, that process of just kind of having to focus and zone in. You had a mentor. You had Crump. We've had Crump on the show. Really able to like walk you through a lot of things early on, introduce you, open doors. Did you have anybody like that for you
I
early
met
on?
Michael, by the way.
Yeah.
Nice guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, his office is actually by my house, so
Oh, word?
he told me
Okay.
to come by the office. I had a chance yet,
There you
but
go.
no, actually, in the tech world, I would say no. I go back and think. I've met a lot of people in my journey that's actually helped me in my tech. So I can't say it's just one particular person. I would say it's one, my passion I had for IT, right? So I was like, look, I'm gonna go out here and learn. But I think, a few bosses I had, a few people I worked with, they kind of pushed me. I'll never forget, there was this person I used to work with at a company called Rexam, over in South Park. It's a bottling company. They used to make aluminum cans. I don't think they're around anymore. They got bought out. But anyway, there was a gentleman I worked with. His name was Ivor. He's over in California now. Him and his kids, is funny stories around that. But anyway, he was an exchange admin. And so he would actually, him and I forgot the other guy's name, but they used to push me in regards to figuring out what I wanted to do. Do I always want to be a system administrator, or do I want to? One of the guys was the manager over networking, and he was like, "Hey, here's a switch. Log into it, see what you like to do." I was like, "Okay, we got this test exchange server, a couple of Microsoft things. Go in there and play, but really figure out and hone in on what you want to do. Once you hone in, then that's the path you go, and then you start taking those steps to get there." And so one of the things that I did was my next job, I said, okay, I want my job to pay for me to get my certification.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
And so
money.
one of the jobs I got requirement was to get my certification, but they were going to pay for it. So I went to Chicago and I went to a boot camp.
Yeah.
And I tell you, that was probably the hardest thing I had ever done. You talking about a week worth of information and 3 tests in 7 days. So you're basically first 2 days, boom, you got a test. And then you got to forget everything you just learned and go and pass another one. I have to admit, the last test I did not pass because I was having a hard time with subnetting.
Okay.
And that was probably the hardest part of the Windows test,
Gotcha.
was subnetting for me. And trying to figure out, okay, you got a Class C subnet, how many IP addresses do you get in that subnet? And then there's this big calculation that you go through to get it. And so when I got home, I practiced because, after you fail a test, they actually give you voucher to retake it at whenever
Good,
time
okay.
you want. So
Yeah.
I went. I was like, okay, I'll go home. I'll study, and I went and retook the test, and I passed.
There
And
you
so, you know, I had a year in my new job to get it. It didn't take me long to get it, but it's just persistent, right?
Exactly.
Don't give up. When you figure, if you fail at something in IT, don't give up, because one of the things I've also learned is there's the Microsoft way, but then there's other ways to do things as well.
Got it.
So Microsoft has its specific way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only way to get to a particular outcome.
But I would assume the theory behind all these things are relatively similar. So once you understand the theory of how to create an end goal, then kind of focusing through the different platforms and how they want you to do things kind of links back together.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Any regardless of what you're learning, whether it's starting a new job and learning a new skill, that company is going to teach you how to do it, right? Even with your certifications, Microsoft, they have created these tests. And so guess what? They have a specific way they want to do it. They're going to train you to do it that way, and so that way you can pass the test.
So I love that story because we always hear about all the successes, but I look like, hey, I didn't pass and I had to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As it, you know, I met some turmoil. I hit a situation that wasn't ideal, but still got the job done.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff we're trying to really convey to folks, all the folks that we work with and everything. Like, this is going to be difficult. Some of this stuff is going to be the hardest stuff you've ever done.
Yep.
Keep going anyway.
Dog,
And-
I failed one certification in all my years. I have my PMP, ACP, all the P's, right? I got all these Agile certifications, and just because of the nature of how they give Agile certifications to other things, it was like once I had the theory down, I could just kind of move through these questions, right? So last year, I'm building an addition to move my mom in. So I got people in and out of my house. I'm trying to move her in. We were about to go. Well, we had just came back off vacation. I have my SPC, which is like mastery level for all safe courses. Like I can teach and certify in safe.
Yeah.
Right. Took the class. I failed. And with Bank of America, they make you pay for the certification yourself, and then once you pass it, they hand you the money back. I'm like thousands of dollars deep into this remodel. I'm just coming off this vacation, and I failed that first. I was like, when I tell you it broke me, I was like, how are you gonna get through this thing? Sure enough, another 2 days, study. I was like, I want to keep it fresh because I know once I put this out of my mind, I'll be fine. Passed it. It was like the largest weight off the shoulder. But those 2 days, I probably slept like 30 minutes.
Yeah. No, I feel it's actually, so I left the Microsoft way very early on. No, hey, I take great pleasure in not messing with anything Microsoft on a day-to-day basis. But in the beginning, when I was thinking I wanted to go down the data route, I took I took a boot camp, and it was your MCSA and MCSE over the course of like 12 or 14 days or something crazy like that. It was insane. So a total of 5 tests, because the MCSA is 2 separate tests. You got to get 70 or 700 on each to pass. The last 3 were the same, but they were the MCSE.
Yep.
So everyone in the class is cooking. Like, I mean, we got the study groups going. Like, it's pushing, and you're not looking back on it. I tell everybody, like you said, have your job pay for your certifications. Like, learn what you're talking about first.
Yeah.
Do the work, build a portfolio, then have your job ideally pay for a certification. I didn't do that because I didn't have a mentor at the time, so I was just trying to figure something out. I go in, I pass every test up to the last test, and it wasn't just me. No one in the class passed the last test. Yeah, it was crazy because no one in the class had the business taking this MCSE. It's a Microsoft Certified Solutions expert on like data warehousing and stuff like that at the time.
Day 5, your brain is
I
just
believe
mush.
it. Mush, yeah.
Yeah.
So we already got through first test. We're in the depths of the second test, and they're asking experience-based questions like the MCSE. It's a lot based on experience. So I didn't have that. Well, even the folks that did have it, they were struggling with it. So we all got together. We're like studying, reading this book, and I'm really worried because I had to retake it there. So we only had 24 hours to do the retake. And then after that, we ended up having to, we would have had to pay for it. So 24 hours, I'm studying, I hit the retake. I got like a 708. 700 was passing.
Same,
Yo,
Yeah.
75 was the passing grade.
oh my gosh,
I was
the relief
maniacally
in my
laughing.
heart.
Yes.
Like we were all just high, and everybody in our study group, we had like 4 people in our group. They all passed.
There you go.
Wait, no, I lied. There was one. I almost tried to put them out of my mind because I felt bad, but no, there was one that did it.
Somebody had to pay.
But
Yeah.
the 3 did, and we went through, and they ended up retaking it later, I think, and
Yeah.
passing. But that's everyone's gonna have that experience,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Like even when you get in the job, let's say you do the more appropriate route, which I think is learn what you're talking about first,
Yeah.
then have your job pay for some sort of certification. Even then, like you guys said, you're going to run into a challenge. You're going to fail a test at some point.
Oh yeah.
It's just par for the course.
No, it is, and the biggest point to that is not to give up. Right? You could feel demoralized after you take a test. You've been studying and for hours on end, and you get there and you get a 699 was
That's
the
how,
worst.
yeah, right.
Oh,
Because it was like the multiple choice. You might have circled one that was wrong, and you failed. But don't give up, because after you pass, the reward after that is much greater.
Yeah.
And so I say keep it moving.
I still remember the person I remember the most from this course, and no hate to this person, I don't remember their name, but they were working as a SQL dev. Like they were working for the job I was pursuing already.
Mm-hmm.
They were getting their cert there, they're feeling good about their life, whatever. And there's 2 tests again in this course, 2 certs.
Okay.
So the first cert again was at 3 tests. You had to pass all 3. He didn't pass the last one of the 3. We're not even talking about going to the MCSE.
Yeah.
He didn't pass the last one of the 3 and literally just gave up on the whole thing.
Wow.
He just he was like, I'm good. And he just chilled for another week in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, it must be nice.
Must be
like,
nice.
I
Must
don't,
be nice, because
Yeah.
that's crazy. But he was just like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Like, I don't need to be stressing about this. But you could tell he was a little upset he
Yeah,
didn't
he's
pass.
scared.
Like,
Yeah.
that attitude it irks me to my core. I don't understand how you can do that. I mean, his wife's like calling him in there, and he's like I hear him explaining to his wife in words
Yeah.
how come he didn't pass, and then explaining that he's not going to take the
Not
test
gonna
again. Bro,
yeah,
It's
Hey.
been comfy then.
must be nice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
must be nice.
I mean,
man.
because you think about testing, and then you think about real life job. You're gonna fail in that too.
Absolutely.
You're gonna write some code, or you're gonna try to push something out that is gonna fail, and you gotta just redo it. Crazy story. I won't say what I was doing, or but anyway, let's just put it this way: I had to go and have a conversation with the VP that was over IT, and apologize because I made a mistake. And he ended up having to have a conversation with the board.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you make
Yeah,
mistakes,
exactly.
and, I chalked that one up
Yeah.
and said I won't do that again.
Yeah.
But again, part of learning is the failure, especially in IT. I mean, I don't know how many. Even though I say I don't like code, I done wrote so many batch files and and everything like that. It's crazy. That's why I can read code good, but going in and developing it, not my strong suit.
Man, it's wild to me. I remember the only last Windows thing I did was when I was working as a SQL dev, SQL Server 2012 at the time. I don't know what's out now, but I was doing data warehousing, and there was a C#.NET dev that was sat right behind me, and he was doing his thing. And I remember just seeing what he was doing. It sparked my interest in understanding like how the code side of everything worked. But I did not want to deal with what he was dealing with. I didn't want to deal with Visual Studio. And I actually like Microsoft now. There was a while that I didn't like Microsoft, where I was not a fan. I was making my money with Microsoft tools. But then they started going through this huge shift, like probably it was at least 5-6 years ago, if not 7 years ago, whenever the new CEO they got came through. And I started really liking it. It's like they went towards and started marketing a lot of their products and services towards the Linux community.
Yeah.
Like even how they built everything, like how they built VS Code and how they did a lot of things, even in Azure. I'm now I'm now much more of a Microsoft fan,
Yeah.
so I want to emphasize that. But okay, I'll ask you this: because you mentioned a few different certs, few different paths. Right now, from your point of view, what do you view as like the most lucrative path in tech right now for someone who's new, doesn't know what they're doing?
If I had to put, I'll give you two actually. Cybersecurity is one of them.
Yeah.
Everybody I know, regardless of what company, is looking for cybersecurity. I mean, because of the hackers and everything that's going on. And then the next one I would have to say is cloud, whether it be AWS or Azure. Everybody's moving from that on-prem, if they can, to the cloud. And so you got what your AWS cloud practitioner to start. So that will be somewhere to, go out on YouTube or any other platform to see if you can, find some training information and try your AWS practitioner. But those would be the two right now, I would think.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Cybersecurity is massive.
Yeah.
There's just so much you can do with it, and cloud is massive. Like, I think someone just wanted to get started. Like, you could start in either one of those and end up in the other one. Like,
Yeah.
you could be
Yeah.
cloud focused cybersecurity. Like, they have cloud focused cybersecurity certs in many different. I think Cisco might even have one, but there's a lot of overlap. It's hard to talk about it at a high level, right? Because you tell someone, "Oh, you should go in the cloud
Right.
and get an AWS cert," and I'm like, "Okay." So they get the AWS cloud practitioner. So are they going for cloud engineering jobs? Are they going for like software DevOps type jobs? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess it depends on what you want to do, right? So your AWS practitioner is going to give you your foundation of AWS. But then do you want to develop in AWS? Do you want to architect? I mean, now you got to figure out what path in the cloud you want to take. If you want to be a developer, then you go that route. If you want to be able to architect, then there's a path for that. So I guess it depends on what you want to do. Now, actually, I thought of one other thing, and you may disagree with this, but that's okay. For those who want to get into IT but don't want to do IT, then you have your product owners. You
Yeah.
have
I have no idea how many calls I get for product owners specifically.
Yeah.
Not scrum masters,
product owners.
not coaches, not RTEs, product owners.
Yeah.
And it's funny, when I first went on this journey, I told myself I want to be a product owner. I'd never do it now. But it's just between BAs and product owners, marry that role really often, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, product owners would definitely, if you don't want to be a hardcore IT person, but you want to dabble in it, product owners is a way to go.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I view any path that you choose that you like you said, in tech, whatever, like, try it out, right? I think there are kind of the more proven-ish, like, oh, I'm entry level in the tech phase.
Like we talked about the difference of, like, it's hard to create a portfolio as a product owner.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's much easier to create a portfolio, something to show an interviewee, hey, I know how to have this skill.
Yeah.
Which is why I like the two certifications or the two paths you said earlier, because the roles and the technologies are moving so fast. These companies are just like, you have the cert, you kind of know how to do it, cool, we'll teach you the rest. And they're just pulling you in so quick. But
And that's why I say, even though you use the term entry level into IT, whatever job you get, they're going to teach you their processes the way they want you to do it. So right, wrong, or indifferent. If it's the right way, if it's the wrong way, they're going to teach you that way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree that you can get started on any of these paths. I think the only thing that I push a little bit up front is, okay, if you want to do it as quickly as possible, get in, making a certain amount of money, and then have your pick of the litter. I usually push people towards coding in the beginning, especially the younger, just because there's so many entry-level-ish positions around. Like, there's a huge shortage of React devs. There's a huge shortage, like, insert web framework here, developer, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, you may hate it. You may hate it. Do it for 1 to 3 years, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, you can pivot to whatever. You can pivot to Scrum Master, product owner, designer, cloud, like whatever it is. Once you get those coding skills, even if you never code again,
Yeah.
it does something to you.
yeah.
I'm thinking the same
know.
thing, because when you suggested being a product owner, the first thought that came to mind is, but what, like, round yourself.
Yeah.
Like, don't get fully absorbed into being a PO. Learn a little, read some about the tech. Start like digging in. Build yourself some crappy code for your own machine, but at least you can feel how it. So when you're talking to people, you're coming from at least a small area of knowledge.
Yeah.
I feel like if you walk straight into that, you're less likely to understand more about the opposite side. But even if you do walk in from a development standpoint, and then later decide, okay, I want to pursue design, I want to pursue agile or any type of PM work, then it becomes like I still have my bases, I still have that foundation in the back, to where when I'm interacting and talking to developers, you two know, like, the worst thing, and you hear from a product owner is like, oh, like that's a quick fix, right? You can just, well, you know good and well it's not a quick fix, because you had to fix it at one point. So it kind of helps you and gives you, as they say, a little street cred moving forward in the area.
Yeah. And I'm a huge advocate for the cloud route too. I mean, I do, majority of all my work now is cloud oriented. All the coding I do is cloud oriented. So, I mean, if you pick up one of the baseline cloud certs, you may even strategize, like I've seen, because there's less people that know GCP and less people that may know Azure than AWS. Maybe you want to differentiate, pick up one of those certs, and just because there's going to be more jobs with less people.
Yep.
Like, any of the cloud certs are going to be good, but you have to then think about and strategize, because it's different than the portfolio with the, like, web dev stuff. I can build web dev stuff. I can show it easily in a portfolio. It's very, like, visual, and they can walk through all my code. You can still do that, but you got to be a little bit more creative. And because you may not understand the app side, what's the purpose of all this infrastructure? Is to deploy apps.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
So-
Like, you just, like, walk up with your certificate, like, they told me to present this here. You need me, right? Like, how do you showcase your skills as a cloud dev or even a cloud architect after going through those certifications?
I would do it by, okay, you went through the certification. Let's say you wanted to do the cloud. Well, there's different paths within each cloud. One of them, like you said, is like there's usually a dev focused one, which is much more kind of DevOps, really.
Yeah.
It's not really pure dev. Then there's a security track. Then there's like an architect, solutions architect track.
Let's say I doubled down on that, like, security track.
Security track, I mean, there's not a ton of visual there. You just have to understand and show that you understand networks, network security, and then what that means in the cloud. And you're going to have to show that you understand how they handle, like, identity and access management, because that's really like a huge portion of your job. If you're doing, though, like the solutions architect or the cloud dev course, then you're going to want to have some infrastructure, have some type of demo application that you didn't even necessarily have to write, but is containerized, right? And then you deploy that over different types of infrastructure. Like, oh, this is a single region deployment across these availability zones. Then, oh, we're expanding that. This is a 2-region deployment behind this load balancer. And you got to understand what the infrastructure is you're talking about, and what are the benefits to your application for using this type of infrastructure setup. And that's the type of stuff you can show, because I can write code, I can write Terraform code to provision all of this infrastructure. And if you know that too, Terraform is going to be a huge value add in the field of cloud, just on your resume in general. So you're probably going to want to show that.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And that certificate is going to get your foot in the door at least.
Yeah.
Get you a conversation, right? And so once you get that conversation, like Daryl said, you want to showcase what you know,
Yeah.
and differentiate yourself between the other, possible candidates that they may be interviewing that same day. And also realize too that you're not going to jump into a company and be, a lead or a senior.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to start at the bottom. So it may be something that is a junior position to where you're getting your foot in the door, or you may take a job that maybe you may not want,
It's like adjacent. Yeah.
but it's adjacent, but it gets your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And then also too, when you think about, maybe there's people that are currently working at particular jobs and they're saying, oh, you know what, I want to get into IT. I bet you there's IT within their department that they can start doing. Because remember, like I said earlier, I'm not in IT. I work on the business side now, but I still do IT functions.
Gotcha.
So that's another pathway into IT.
Yeah.
So when I was before Duke bought Piedmont, and so I was IT 8. You know, we did everything, SCCM, you know, deployments, the whole nine. Duke bought, and I moved over to the IT side on Duke, and worked in the Citrix area. Did infrastructure design and delivery, and I said, you know, I'm getting too stressed out. This is a lot. I gotta let's do something different, right? I need that work-life balance.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I want to go back to. I actually went back to my old job. So I went back to my old job because I was familiar with it. So now I specialize in supporting a few applications, but I still get my hands on servers. I still get my hands in IT. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Not the stress of IT, but I
Exactly.
still get to do IT.
There you go.
So
That makes sense. Work-life balance.
yeah,
I'm still in pursuit of work-life balance.
How are you?
I am, but I just feel weird when I'm not working. Like, I feel odd about it.
You might be like one of 10 whose work-life balance is opposite face. Like the rest of us are just like, this job is stressing me out. I need to find a way to
Yeah.
get by.
Yeah.
It's so much work. It's so little life. And then you're on that 1 out of 10. It's just like, yo, there's so little life, but there's so much work. It's like,
I always have something in my head to be working on, and I almost feel anxious if I'm not. I don't know.
you know, I tell, and you know, I have to remind myself the work is going to be there, but the years that the days, the years, the months that pass by that I don't spend with my kids, I got 3 of them. You know, those things I can't get back. The work is always going to be there, but you know, kids get older, they want to do their own thing. And so it's all about priority. You want to do a good job, you know, you're going to do a good job at work, but leave work at work. Even though there's always going to be a project, right? There's always going to be an assignment. There's always going to be code to write. But you can't get that time back with your kids. So
Yeah.
that's why I kind of do my whole work-life balance. Is like, look, 5 o'clock, I'm done. I'm shutting my computer off. I'm getting away from my computer, and I'm going to spend some time with the family, whether it be playing Madden with my son or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's great, man. I found having a family changes around when I can work dramatically.
Yeah.
Like, it's always something that's going to be on the back of my head. But, like, that's why I love working from home, too. Like, seeing my daughter grow up and being able to even go out and engage during the day was huge. And then, like you said, before she goes to bed, she's in bed usually around 7:30, 8. Like, I got to be around. I gotta be there, because this time is short.
Yep.
And then it changed. So, but the work never left my mind. Like, as I'm enjoying it, it's not like as soon as I'm done playing with my daughter, it's there. It's like right back in my head. So I end up either after that's done, like, oh, night time, we did the whole thing, and then I'm back reading something, or I'm back working on something, make sure spending time with wifey, and then as soon as I get back to like, okay, this is my personal time, I end up back in work. And for me, I actually become more imbalanced when I'm not doing that because I don't get tired of my work.
Yeah.
But I know for a lot of people it's the opposite. Like, it'll drain you. You get extremely fatigued. But that's because at some point in my career, my work and my recreation kind of became aligned. So
That sounds very familiar.
yeah, like it became kind of aligned. So it worked out. Like, if I didn't enjoy it, if it wasn't recreation for me, then it would be weird. And I had to look at it that way too, because, hey, what are you doing? Are you spending, in the single days, a lot of hours, 12 plus, and then now less,
Yeah.
like substantially less. But I'm not, like, if I play the game at all or anything like that, or doing something like that, I'm not doing this. Like,
Right.
this is what I do instead of those things a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely like that. It was because IT was my hobby too. So it was building computers, troubleshooting stuff for different friends, or building computers for them, or different things like that. And I said, man, I got to get away from this computer. This is driving me absolutely crazy. And so I just forced myself to kind of pull back, right? I said, you know what? I'm going to stop building computers. I don't need the frustration. Because you building a computer and you taking the little capacitors or connectors and trying. I'm like, I can't do that no more. I got more important things to do. So no, because I was where you are years ago, and I just said I can't do this. It wasn't stressful. It was just I'm spending too much time doing this. It's time consuming, right? You're building computers, you're coding, you're just doing the stuff you love, and it's like I got to do something different, because what happens is it's going to come, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't even remember what I'm looking for. It's going to get to a point to where you may not like it as much because you do it all the time. It's repetitive, become monotonous, right? So you just have to find a way to pull away from it from time to time.
As the resident here with no kids, I found that I've become like really strict on my time. And if I find myself like playing video games or doing something later on, I'm like, all right, this is getting in the way of other stuff, or I got stuff I gotta do for wife, stuff I gotta do for my moms that I can't do because I've looked up and hours have gone by. So I told myself, I said, all right, if you're gonna play video games, I said you're gonna wake up early in the morning to do it. So wake up at 5 o'clock, wake up at 6 o'clock. This is your time.
Yeah.
And then I realized that my time just bled. Like now I'm looking up and it's 7. I'm all right. So I have to figure out what to put in this time period to where I feel like I'm doing something for me, but the time blindness isn't there. So that's where working out came in. Now I'm up at 6 o'clock running, or I'm up at 6 o'clock lifting. Trust me, I got about 45 hours to an hour max before I'm like, yeah, this is dumb. Why don't I even do this? And I'm like walking away from it. But just like finding specific things for those time periods to where you can scratch the itch of, okay, I need to do something that has been on my mind. I need to do something that I want to move forward in, but I don't have time blindness too. Yeah. Because it'll just bleed into other aspects of your life.
Oh yeah, because I've run into situations, and this was actually last week, 2 weeks ago. You know how you start working on the issue? It's already, let's just say 8 o'clock in the evening. You working on the issue. Next thing you know, it's 3:30 in the morning. My wife sends me a text and say, "Hey, you coming to bed?" I was like, "Oh man, I didn't realize it was that late," because you're so focused on fixing that issue, you forget. Oh man, I do got to be up at 6:30 in the morning to go to work, and now you're not getting the proper rest, and now you're gonna be stressed that day, or you're gonna be sleepy, or whatever the case may be. So I try not to be. I try 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Be off the computer, be out, just kind of relaxing, shut my mind down. That's what I do. And then on Fridays, me and my wife now, lunchtime, Fridays, we call it date lunch.
Yeah.
So every Friday we go to lunch and, talk about different things throughout the day, throughout the week, whether it be just about us, whether it be about the family, or whatever the case may be. We just go to lunch and kind of put the phones away, and it's just our time. So that definitely helps.
I like that.
Yeah, it helps. I mean, we've been married 21 years. 21. Be 22 this year.
Congrats.
In December. So
that's what's up. See, the thing that I think worked, at least it seems to be working so far, is I had to get a job that lets me do the things that I like to do. Like, because,
you've had that for some time, man.
Have
like
what?
Even a job that allows you to do the thing. Because even when we were at Duke, like they'd be like, "Hey, we guys need you to do this thing." And Jerry's like, "I don't want to do that." And I'm like, "Well, what do you want to do?" "I think we should build this."
Okay.
All right, go do it. So it's been like that for some time. So
it's been like that in a way, but like, so then I was hardcore. I mean, I was slinging code all day, right? And in this role, I'm more so like, I have other things, like all this video stuff, all the like content creation side of things is something that I became really interested in around in the tech space. And I realized this is going to take a very large time commitment outside of my normal daily job. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I can't really, I have my daughter, I have my family. I can't dedicate more time to work.
Yeah.
Right? Similar to that, like I have 40 hours where I'm like, how am I going to make the most in a short amount of time? And that's where this job, I picked up this one because they allow me to do this as part of like what I'm actually measured as and like my performance. And it's like tied in
that is huge.
with like still doing coding stuff, still doing all that. So I can spend my 40 hours throughout the week on the things that I'm trying to build. That's really like the only thing that works. Or else I would be spending 5 to 8 hours extra every day on just doing this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do that with my family. So I'm appreciative of it because it was like, I want to do it, but I'm not, hey, I got obligations.
Yeah. How do I fit it in?
And now, it's going pretty well. I like, because I love the coding stuff, but I do love engaging, making content, working with people. Also love working with customers, helping them with those problems. And this role was just unique in that way. And I don't know how that even happened in the role that like we worked together on. They would just let me do most things that I wanted to do.
Either. It just kind of happened.
I don't know. I
Was it the nature of the project, or it's just the nature of the
it was
area?
the nature of the business unit.
Yeah.
Because we were digital transformation.
Oh well.
And he specifically was like in like a small, unchecked, unregulated part of the larger, unchecked, unregulated part of the business.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was like the R&D of digital transformation. It was like we were working on a bunch of weird stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think we did have a little bit more freedom than usual. And I mean, I fell in love with R&D in general there. Just we had a lot of stuff that we had to investigate very quickly, spin up teams around, all that kind of stuff. So we were able to churn through projects.
I always joke, when I first joined Duke, this is like June of 2017, July 2017. And I've never seen like a corporate office before in my entire life. Like just between installing cable. And, I mean, like from a work perspective. I have parents and aunts and stuff, whatever the case may be. But so now I'm in this corporate office. I'm sitting at this table, and for what it felt like for like the first 8 months of my job was that like John Mitchell would come in every Monday, and he'd just walk, "How you guys doing? Doing all right?" And it would feel like he would say something like, "I had a dream this weekend that like thermostats could talk to our servers. You guys think you can do that?" And while I'm still trying to compute what he just said, Sean and G were like, "Yeah, we could probably figure it out." And then before Thursday, we had demo every Friday. And then before Thursday, they're just like, "Hey, so we've been working through this. We asked you to do this on Monday afternoon. Did you do it?" We're just like, "Yeah, cool, here." And they're like, "Cool. Huge project." They're like, "Ding. All right, cool." And then they would go, "YouTube, go demo it." And we're just like,
okay.
all right. And the same thing would repeat every single Monday.
Y'all did well though.
Yeah.
It was man, now you're bringing back all the memories. I think the weirdest thing, and that was John Mitchell, that he came in, he was like, "Hey, Smart Grid or something, right? They have these like giant posts, basically our smart posts or whatever that was supposed to be going up."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, so we want a demo in front of all these executives, but they need a interface, a physical interface to put on the pole so that people can touch and like make the pole do things." There's nothing does that right now. And we were like, "What do you mean nothing does it? Like we don't have anything like at all." And we ended up over the course of that week, it maybe gave us a week and a half, maybe. Over the course of that week and a half, we got a Raspberry Pi, got like the 7-inch touch, figured out how to interface with all of their like stuff that they had integrated there, just to do a few key actions from the buttons, and like we attached it to this thing, and we ended up going, I think we went wireless actually, because we didn't even have to. So we went wireless and wirelessly connected to the screen up top, and then had to demo this whole thing all over the course of a week.
That's crazy.
Like, that was wild. Now I'm thinking back.
Probably why I'm no longer coding.
Yeah.
Because the juice is flowing.
Yeah, like Monday afternoon, they were just like, "Hey, have you ever heard of C#?" "I've heard of it." I'm like, "Cool, take this course like for the next 2 days, and we need you to write this function by the end of the week." And
We did nothing with C# ever.
No, but that was like the thing. It was like JavaScript, then it was iOS, then it was, and I was just like, every week was a completely different language than the 2 weeks of React practice I had walking into that job. So that was the thing. I was sitting there like, okay, I can't keep doing this.
The first 2 weeks at Duke, I think I did do a little C#. It was like a little bit of .NET Core. That just random, that memory came back.
Yeah.
And then I ran away
did
with
Python. Y'all just coding
A little bit
Python
of
for one of the
Python.
things.
Yeah, because it was
weird.
like a data science.
was
Oh,
a
this
new
week,
dream
hey,
that
we
came
need you to
in.
do this VR thing. Oh, this week we need you to do this mobile app. oh, this week we need to do this, and we just had to prototype so much, so quickly. Oh, this week we need you to figure out, how to run your own OS for these smart home devices. It's like,
Okay.
what are we talking about? So it felt like being, it felt like being like code mercenaries. Like,
And it felt like it too, because like we were in our old conference room, like
Yeah.
away from the rest of the bullpen.
Yeah.
So like everybody would walk by and they see us. We're all like over these laptops, so
Oh,
like
boy.
coding and stuff. And like, what do they do in there?
man, that's wild to think back on that.
So you went away from coding to do what, agile coaching and PMP?
Yeah, it
Project management.
wasn't really my choice as much as it was my choice, because
That's it. There's a lot of tact in there.
crazy, but I was really bad at coding. And the stuff was changing too fast for me to really latch on to one thing particularly and have like faith that, hey, if I get really good at this, it'll carry me through the rest of these projects.
Yeah.
Because everything was just moving so fast. So I had to figure out, how was I going to be valuable to this team while I figured out this coding thing. Our process was garbage. Large and behold, because he hates Agile or hated Agile, so did Sean. And and the thing was always shifting. So the way I found value was like, hey, timekeeping, storyboarding out visions, and before I knew it, like one of the managers came in and was just like, hey, so you've kind of been like the scrum master for the last like month and a half, 2 months, right? I was like, yeah, I guess you can call it that. Like, we have 6 other teams that we'd like you to do that for.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then I turned around and I had like way too many at once, but that's how it ran. So
Okay.
We were probably the worst Scrum team
my
that
Lord.
he said we were doing Scrum. We didn't do Scrum.
No.
We did, because every week was a new thing. You don't have a
there's
sprint.
no iterative,
Right.
Every
nothing
week,
to
at
build
most,
on.
we worked on, before we got put on like a couple different real bigger project teams, we were churning out different prototypes every week, so there wasn't a 2-week sprint.
Nope.
It wasn't until we got like attached to some larger product teams,
Right.
and we were okay. Yeah, we're running 2-week sprints and things like that. So yeah, we were terrible for.
Really bad. It was an easy thing. It was an easy win for me because it was just like nobody would remember what we were originally supposed to be doing by the time we got to Wednesday, because he's deep in the cold hole. The other dude is like researching other things to architect and like patch in. And I'm just like, hey guys, this is not the problem we're trying to serve. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, you're right. And then it brings us back in.
Yeah.
Easy dub.
And that would all happen. Like we just became. It's basically like they incentivized.
Anarchy.
Ooh, there's a squirrel. Like, like jumpers will come in and he'd be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, is a squirrel? You want it?" And like we're excited, like, "Yeah, give us a
Chase
squirrel."
after it. Chase
Yeah,
after it.
that was, and I think that was what our team just became good for at the beginning. And then what was cool is the stuff that we ended up building, the prototypes. Then they kind of went out and branched out into bigger products and stuff,
Yeah.
which was that progression was really cool to see. And I do think that when you're running R&D and doing just straight up kind of MVP prototyping type work, it does require a different form than an actual real product team.
Yeah.
Where I think Agile and Scrum really shine.
Absolutely.
Like, we were just a bunch of weird people in a room doing some very weird stuff.
Honestly, I think that there's one lesson I took from that entire time. It was Sean, and Sean's focus was all because Sean and they had their own little master plan, like tucked aside, like, hey, so once they finally stop giving us stuff to do, we're gonna do stuff we want to do
Yeah.
here, and they're gonna pay for it, and they're gonna love it, and we're gonna ship it out. But they were always like, hey, before we can work on the thing that we want to work on, we have to hand them value so they'll leave us
Yeah.
alone to go do
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
And that was the main focus that always stuck with me, because I always have something up my sleeve where I'm like, hey, if I can work with this team over here that they don't really know that they need help, cool. But they're not going to let me just run over there and do that. So
No.
let me give them what they want first, and then that'll buy me what I need later on.
Yeah.
You have to. You had to add value. That was hands down, I think, the only reason we were given the autonomy we did, because when they would come to us, we would
delivered.
give them what they needed. And we did that multiple times so that when they came to us, they had this confidence
Yeah.
already just in our ability to deliver things. That pays so much over the long haul. I mean, we were able to basically write our own ticket and what projects we wanted to work on, what
Yep.
things we wanted to push forward, because they saw a track record.
Yep.
That principle, like you said, applies across the board.
It does. No, it does. Because if you don't show value, if you go in there, you can speak a good game, but you can't deliver. That's the fastest way for your career to nosedive.
Yeah.
So go in there, show value, and then your company, that whoever you work for, whatever job you're doing, it's going to allow you some leeway to make mistakes or to progress or get more responsibility. And as you get more responsibility, you make more money.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big thing that my current manager is, because like the bank works on like a band system and like how you work. And it's numbered. So he always say, don't come to me saying I want to be a band 3 or I want to go and do this. You need to come to me asking me, what responsibility can I take on to move into a band 3? And I was just like, wow, that's really but he was like, everybody wants more money. I get it. But no one wants more responsibility.
Yep, exactly.
It's the fastest way that you're going to get there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's why, like, with my teams, I focus on predictability. Because we've already been assigned value. We've already been given a thing that they want from us that they have decided well above our pay grade is going to bring the bank in money. But I don't care if we turn in 10 story points or this small piece of value every week. I need them to know that they're going to get the same 10 points every week.
Yeah.
Because then they can plan and we can be financially stable off that. Now, once we get stable and we're predictable, then I'll find ways for us to increase our throughput.
Yeah.
That's fine. But this whole spiking thing of, I thought I could, and we had the one developer who just decided he was going to put the team on his back, but then he got a sniffle, and he gets a sniffle every sprint. How does this keep happening? But predictability is the name of the game, because that's where that value gets driven from. Or you get that team who delivered that one crazy feature and just say, we can go back to Team Delta over here, and then they don't ever do anything again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, this is just a really weird, because I think people will hear the R&D thing and they hear your thing and they're like, oh man, that could be kind of cool. Like that could be something I want to try, right? I just want to say we're talking about mental health, work-life balance.
Oh no, God, there was none. There was none.
This is a weird part. So I'm curious y'all thoughts on this, because
he moved for a project. He was literally living in another apartment just so that we could work, because we were working on a project that we could not stand up within the walls of the building just because of all the subnet and VPN issues. Yeah. We could not communicate with the outside world the way we need to. So the architect at the time had an apartment where they gave us permission to go work out of.
Wow. That's crazy.
He has a sleeping bag in the corner. The other dude has, and I'm like, there's absolutely no way I'm staying here. Yeah. So I'm walking in every morning at 7:30. I'm just like,
and we already been working. We start working at 5.
You slept here?
5:30.
Well, define slept. I'm like, all right, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. You see that sleeping bag over there in the corner? Did you sleep there? Yes, I did. Okay.
I closed my eyes.
And there wasn't a lot of balance, but also that helped put years ahead as far as relationships, clout, all that stuff. Yeah. And you got to weigh this for your own life, because I was single. I wasn't trying to be involved in no nonsense. Yeah. I was just trying to have my head down, be focused, and push forward. That was my cognitive decision, right?
Yeah.
But I had to do that for at least 3 years in the beginning, 3 to 5 really up front. Yeah. The last 2 out of the 5 started to taper off a little bit, but it depends on, I think, where you want to get in the game. Do you want to be working on, and nothing, I don't think it's a wrong answer. I think if you want to go towards being on a product team, fulfilling your role, providing value that way, I think you can do that without doing that.
Yeah. If
you want to work on very cutting edge, weird stuff and be in those weird spaces, they require weird behaviors a lot of the time. I don't know. I'm curious as y'all's thoughts, but I always say people if you want to really get in this game and excel quickly, you got to put in a lot of work up front.
You do. You have to make the sacrifice up front. You have to start learning your craft and understand it, but also you have to add value. Now, there's a balance to that, because what I find is if you put too much effort doing that, your boss or manager is going to expect that every single time. So it's that balance there to say, look, okay, I'm doing this in the back of your mind anyway, not telling your boss that, but in the back of your mind, it's like, okay, I need to do this to show value, but I got to trim this down or slow down a little bit, because your priorities start to change, but then it's also not healthy to keep that up. You go at it, you're working, because at the end of the day, right? Let's just say you got a 40-hour work schedule. You work 60 hours. Well, you're not getting overtime. You're making a salary. You're still making the same amount of money. Now, mind you, the respect and the leeway that you get by doing that is one thing, but it's like you're not making anything more monetarily.
Yeah.
So you still have to have that balance to make sure that you're not burning yourself out and you're not making anything extra.
Oh yeah, if you're doing it without the like sight of how to make more,
Yeah.
I don't understand that at all. Like
No,
I
but
wasn't
people
putting
do
in
it.
work just to put in work because. So I have a rule too. I don't give my actual job
Yeah.
more than like 40 hours unless I'm getting something out of it.
Right.
So for even when I was at it, I was getting a lot of it because we were doing R&D. I was learning a ton of
Yeah.
new stuff, learning IoT, learning like a lot of cloud stuff, learning a ton of different stuff,
Yeah.
which put me in positions to take roles where I can make more money and also negotiate there to make more money. That was always in the back of my mind, right? But if I'm in a job where I'm just day to day, like this is my day to day,
Right.
and I'm not really in that type of position, you get 40 hours of my time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then if I'm
That's what you paid
grinding,
for.
if I'm-
That's what you paid for.
if I'm grinding,
Yeah.
then I'll do 20 to 30 hours on top of that, but it's not for them. It's like adjacent that's going to put me in a position to make more money in the next role.
Right. And I'm not saying that you won't ever have to do it, right? Because there are projects you're working on and you get stuck on an issue. You like, look, I'm going to fix this issue before I get up out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's been many nights I've been at the office. It's, 8:30, 9 o'clock. My wife is calling me and she said, hey, when you coming home? It's like, look, I got this issue. I got to figure it out. I got this deadline by tomorrow. So, I mean, you got to pay your dues.
There's going to be overworked days for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I
I
always
talk
say,
about the certifications, and sometimes it's depending on the severity of the certifications. Like, look, I have to block out the world real quick. This is going to be a
Yeah.
4-hour study session on top of my work day. This is going to be one of these types of weeks, and you just adjust and you adjust for it moving forward.
yeah. But even that's extra. Like I'm cool with that. I'm cool with putting in, you negotiate with
Yeah.
your family, that stuff.
Yeah.
But like if my job is requiring me to put in unpaid overtime, more than like, okay, this is a crazy situation, something happened, so I had to put in a few days of work. If that happens consistently, or if you asking, no, I'm not doing that.
We got to have a conversation
I'm
about
not.
that.
I'm not doing it. We're not even having a conversation. I'm just telling you I'm not doing
Yeah.
it.
Well, you talking to
Like-
the wrong person for this because Mr. Ad. Like I hear any of my developers working over 40 hours. I'm just like, hey, who approved this? Who asked
Right.
for this? Well, they had a no. I don't know how many times I've had to go to. Do not talk to them. If they
Yeah.
email you, forward it. I said I don't even want you to read it. If you see their name and you don't see mine, forward it to me. Because those are the small things on top of having like those crazy bug fix, production errors, something that we
Yeah.
all got to swarm and fix. That's one thing. But then a lot of times what creeps into the both of your worlds is like it's like I had a dream or this is a quick fix, right? You could just write this up, right? And now that turns into a 10, 12-hour day for a developer and then what drives me crazy at the program level, I'm now working with somebody's CIO and they're just like, why aren't we hitting our targets? I was like, well, he worked 13 hours a day for 2 weeks and then had no brain left for the rest of the sprint, number one. Or number two, all the things we agreed to, which this number is based off, you didn't get 30% of it because you started shoving other work into the system, and now you wonder why you only got 70% completed. That 30% of work just like vanished into the air after you got what you wanted.
You mean people actually do a scope creep?
Not while I'm around, I'll tell you that.
Man.
You gotta introduce that triangle. Introduce that triangle. You know how many people I've drawn that triangle for? Like C-level executives. Like, well, that's the. Let me. You ever see this scope triangle? Go ahead and bring it up. You got more money? No. Do we get more time? No. Then you get no more scope. That's just
There you go.
how it works.
That's it, man. I think it's so funny. I feel like, oh man, I lost it for a second. I lost what I was gonna say, but we were talking about the ability to say no. That's what
Yeah.
it was.
Oh, well.
You have to kind of know enough almost
Yeah.
to be able to say no and know why you're saying no.
Yeah.
That's to me what really gives you the confidence behind saying no to someone. And what I've noticed in the people that have a hard time saying no, some folks have a hard time saying no just because they don't like conflict.
Yes.
I'm definitely not one of those
that
people.
is true.
No.
But there are also people that have a hard time saying no because they're like, I'm unsure if this no is even justified or there's a power dynamic thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying like you can be confident in saying no when you know that this is an unrealistic ask. Like my bosses a lot of times will come to me and I'm thinking back on times I would have to say no. They'd be like, oh, so we could, maybe we get this done in a couple days. And I said, no, 100% no. Like, oh, what do you mean?
Yeah.
because this isn't this. Like I lead with no. I lead with no just to set your expectations because this isn't going to happen. But then I'll explain.
Yeah, they tell us we can't say no. We can only say not yet. Or we can say, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get this thing? So from your perspective, that makes total sense, right? Because you know the capacity of your hands on that keyboard. Especially if I understand what your ask is. Then I know, okay, there's no way I'm going to be able to get you what you want in this short frame of time. Yeah. But this the same way I always say, coding is a trade skill. The same way that if the electrician came to your house and said, or you said you wanted a light up there, right? Yeah, cool. I need it by the end of the day. You would never tell the electrician when you need. You never tell the plumber when your toilet got to be working on. You just got to hope and pray and go to the neighbors and use the bathroom. That's just as simple as your life get. So I don't understand why these I do understand why these companies do it, but it's because they don't view it that way. But it's the same thing. They're the skilled tradesmen or tradeswoman in this situation. Trust that you hired the right people. Trust that they want to do the work to fill the time, and that when their skill set will get the job done, it'll get the job done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think sometimes too, though, they may be getting pressure from their bosses and you know, their customers and stakeholders and different things like that. But you know, a lot of times I say, look, here's the Jira board. This is what's in the backlog. Here's what we have. Which one of these groups are you going to say no to? Because if we do this, then their stuff isn't going to get done. Yeah. So which one is going to be priority? Now, if it's regulatory or something like that, you know, it has to be put in. That's one thing. That's different, right? Because now you can justify that change. But if it's just because it's a nice to have or something like that, and then it can wait because there's other priorities that have been put in, and I've had to tell people this before. It's not an emergency because you poorly planned.
Yeah.
It's just not. I mean, that's the real of it.
Man,
because
bars on it. Man.
And I've had to tell people that. But I mean, that's just the real of it is because, you know, we've set schedules for different things, and you know, maybe you forgot or you didn't plan for it. I'm like, well, we've already allocated hours and resources for this, what we have. And now you want to come in on the 9th hour and say, yeah, we need to get this put in. Well, why? What's the business case?
Yeah.
Oh, well, such and such needs it. Well, is it regulatory? No. Is it going to cause a problem with customers if it doesn't get fixed? No. Then it doesn't need to go in now. It can wait till the next release.
Yeah.
So,
man, I'll walk out of a room so fast. That's like
a virtual room.
I was saying, look, I've never had this issue. I've never had an issue with like on a product team or something like that because we define all those things. Like you said, we take in a sprint what we can do. If there's impediments, we discuss it, blah, blah, blah. All this nice parts of Agile, the good stuff. But when my biggest issue, like I've seen a couple times when an executive has come down, C whatever O, and it says, no, this is not. And they're like everybody's boss. And I'm saying in those scenarios, I just walk out. I was like, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm not doing it for you. Like, you could fire me, but that's the thing. Like, once you get to a certain point, and there are people in those leadership positions that think that they know better than the people that are doing the work, you're in a toxic work environment.
Absolutely.
Okay, like you're in a place now that has become imbalanced, and there's not a lot of reasoning that's going to happen here. Right. Like,
you know, some of that too, and just to be honest, some of that is because when you only have one person speaking up about a particular project or whatever the case may be, and the team knows it can't be done, but if it's the same person that speaks up, it falls on deaf ears. But if you had more people in these meetings speaking up and say, look, this is just not reasonable, more people will probably listen to that, because now you're listening to the people who has to do the work. It's not just one voice, it's multiple voices. But it's unfortunate because some people, they just don't like speaking in big environments like that, or they may feel like they don't have the clout to speak in meetings like that. But I have no issues at all speaking in meetings or saying what I need, or even if I don't understand something. Hey, you know what? I don't understand what you're talking about. Let's break it down a little bit more for me, because yeah, I'm in IT, but this is a business requirement. So break it down a little to layman's terms for me so I can understand it.
I love that advice because, like I said, thinking back on these interactions, I was in a position where I was lead engineer over it was like 3+ teams, but the three teams I remember very much so. And on each one of those teams, I was kind of like trending up a seniorish type engineer, someone who was more mid-level, trying to come into their own as a senior type engineer. And they would feel that we would go into rooms, like we'd be having like one-on-ones, and they're like, this isn't going to work. They're asking me this isn't going to work. Like stuff they should be saying on the meeting with the people that are saying the thing, but they didn't have the confidence. So the technique that I used at those times, because they knew I didn't care about blowing up the spot, so that was a lot of the time they're going to be just to blow up the spot.
Yeah.
And so I'd be like, all right, yeah, I'm going to be there for the next meeting. I agree with you or I disagree. There's times I disagreed and they adjusted, but a lot of times I agree with you. So I'm going to be there, but you're going to speak. Because they have to practice.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a problem with this. You don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
You have to get a chance to practice speaking in these types of environments. And so I'd always have them lead with the issue, lead with where the problem was at. And then if someone was pushing back or tried to come in and bully in some way, then I'd come in.
Right.
Yeah, like, all right, chill out. And that was it. But they felt better just having you there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And getting a chance to practice. So I mean, you're right. You have to find opportunities as you enhance and deepen your knowledge to be able to, I think, understand enough context to say no confidently, and then having people who are advocating for you, your teammates, they should understand. They should be on ideally on the same page.
Yep.
And people who are in your mentorship or leadership role,
Yeah.
they should be coming to have your back. These are signs of a non-toxic work environment.
Oh yeah. No, I agree. That definitely makes sense to me.
Oh, that's what. How long we been going? It's hour 23.
Hour and 23.
Hey man, is there anything that
Yeah.
you want people to know? Any wisdom you want to drop for the audience?
It's one of those things that regardless of what field you go in, whether it's IT, whether it's hair, whether it's nails, make sure you love it. Make sure that's something that you can see yourself doing for the rest of your life. I mean, because if you love it, you may not be making the money that you want to make up front, but if you be patient, then guess what? It's going to come. But you just have to be patient, work hard at it. And if you do that, the sky's the limit with your career. And don't be afraid to fail. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I'll say this age group or this generation has issues with failure. There's nothing wrong with failing. If you fail, that just means that you're learning not to do that again, and you can move forward and do something different. So even in IT, don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to say that, hey, I made a mistake, because you're going to make a mistake. None of us are perfect. We're going to put a comma or a exclamation point somewhere that don't need to be there, and it's going to blow up the code or whatever the case may be. But just be confident. Speak up when you need to speak up and keep it pushing.
Awesome. Well, Tony, hey, we appreciated having you on.
I appreciate being here.
This was great. We'll have to have you back at some point.
Absolutely.
Any closing words?
All right, man. Read. That's the I'm
Yeah.
gonna eat it. I'm gonna leave
Read,
everyone.
grow, enjoy your life.
Go read something.
All right, y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
All right. Have a good one.